Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Livable Roadways Committee meeting for August 19th. Let's call the meeting to order and we'll do the pledge.
And you see in the flag, correct?
Yeah.
Pledge
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands,
one nation
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Just some instructions. First, we are limited to 25 panelists, so you may be placed into kind of a holding pattern. Please raise your hand or anything if you need to be acknowledged or you'd like to comment. Also, please make sure that if something happens at your house or where you're bunkering down during this pandemic, that we keep everyone on mute, so to reduce background noise. Next, we'll go on to public comment. Is there any public comment today?
Double checking. Nothing's come in the last few minutes, so let me check the chat. Nope, I think we're good.
All right. Next, we'll move on to the approval of minutes. That's for the June 17th. We all had a chance to look at the minutes. Do we have any questions, or would someone like to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Justin Willits.
Okay, Justin.
Was that Justin?
Yes, that was Justin.
All right. Do we have a second?
I second. This is Carlos.
Second it.
Carlos. Carlos. Okay.
Oh.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No. All right.
Okay.
Next, we don't have any action items, it seems. So we'll move on to status report. Justin with Hart will discuss the service changes proposed for 2021.
Okay. I'm making him the presenter. So you have the screen now, Justin. And while I have everybody's attention, we did upgrade our webinar software, and we can have 25 cameras going at a time. So if you'd like to turn on your video and interact with us, you're very welcome to do that. It should not degrade the experience of the meeting. So I see some of you already have them on, and it's great to see you today. All right, yay, Justin, it's working.
All right, we good there? You got me?
I see it. Does the rest of the crew see it?
Yes, we see it.
All right. Well, hopefully my mic is cooperating.
Oh, yeah, you're louder now. You're louder now.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Justin Willits here, Senior Planner with Hart in the Service Development Department. And what I'm going to present to you today are the service modifications we're planning for early 2021. So I'm just going to get right into it. I guess if there are questions as we go along, would you, Lisa, do you prefer to wait till the end, or do you have a preference?
It's kind of up to you, but I think with virtual, it ends a little easier to manage with the muting and unmuting and talking over each other.
Yeah, let's try to all wait till the end. I think that will be easy.
Okay, and I'm happy to go back to the appropriate slides, so just let me know.
Thank you.
Okay, so just to give everybody a little background, we're doing this analysis. Originally, we were intending to do a new operations analysis to kind of relook at what we did during Mission Max 3 years ago and see what needed to be maybe put back, what needed to be tweaked, and how we were going to move that forward. And this was all in the framework of the Independent Oversight Committee and the Transportation Surtax funding. So we were hoping to do a short-term service plan for expansion. Unfortunately, as we all know, we don't have that funding, and therefore we are using that operations analysis to look at a slight reduction in service to address some of our longer term fiscal sustainability issues. So that's kind of what this plan is crafted around. We are looking at a slight reduction in service, but really to be prepared for a negative outcome from the Supreme Court. And we just want to position ourselves for the future with a lot of funding uncertainty. So I just want to review what these changes that we're recommending are. This is the first phase of public outreach. At the end of this phase, we'll have this refined further and have it a little more solidified. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go through. So the main objectives for identify operational savings to maintain fiscal responsibility, preserve as much coverage and frequency as possible, but maximize existing resources. We want to maintain the essential services we saw that were well utilized during the pandemic and are still being well utilized, and address some of our community requests, some operational requests, which are often safety related, and kind of gather everything over the last few years, and including what we've heard since Mission Max, and try to balance the needs of the agency with the customers, the community, and the vision that we all hope to achieve with transit in Tampa and Hillsborough County. So the proposed changes as they exist, and for a little more context on this, for part of that operations analysis I mentioned before was going to be kind of linchpinned on the origin destination data that we were going to gather by doing onboard surveys of our riders. And unfortunately, that was scheduled for the middle of March. So at the very last minute, we canceled that effort, and now that's on hold indefinitely. So with that being said, major structural changes to the bus network are not incorporated into this effort because we don't have the appropriate data to make those kinds of decisions. So most of the changes you're going to see here are related to frequency, and a few little tweaks and some of the duplicative routes that are underperforming from a ridership perspective, that don't necessarily, they are decisions we can make without knowing the fine details of exactly the exact transfers our customers are taking and the actual origins and destinations associated with their trip types. I can clarify that later if that didn't make sense to anyone, so just please let me know. So the first area we'll start in is the university area. We've had many requests to return service to campus, so we're looking to do that a little bit differently than we used to. You can see Route 5 there. We're proposing to travel north from McKinley, also known as 40th Street, into campus just on Spectrum Boulevard, and come back out on Bruce B. Downs. We just think it will kind of make traveling on Route 5 into campus a little easier for folks, and you won't have to walk across Fowler, which is not my favorite activity. So we think this is it's a small tweak, but it's a big improvement. We're looking to just throw a few stops on Spectrum Boulevard to just get folks onto campus and also provide a better connection from University Area Transit Center. Similarly, Route 48, we're proposing to take Holly Drive across campus to get to UATC. And we think that that's a big improvement for folks. We have a lot of service on Fletcher. Routes 6 and 33 will continue to serve Fletcher on the piece that we would now miss with this route. And the Route 6 is currently every 15 minutes, proposed at every 20, and Route 30 would be hourly service in the proposed plan, just to give you a little context there. Something else we're looking to do with Route 48, there's a lot of slack, what we call slack in that route, and we want to get a little more utilization out of that. And this is also addressing some of the concerns from the cuts during Mission Max north of Fletcher. So what we're proposing to do is serve a one-way loop. This is actually something that was in our IOC plan for Route 44. So it's consistent with some outreach we've already done, but we want to operate a one-way loop on the proposed option 1 is the staff recommendation, assuming we have enough time to do it on the route. But we're proposing to go north on 22nd Street to Livingston, Sinclair Hills, and then come back Nebraska, Bears, Florida Avenue to Fletcher. The other two options are similar routes. One would have a smaller loop at the top to provide two-way service on 22nd Street. That's option 2. And then the option 3 would be just coming back on Nebraska there. This survey is not live for this effort yet, but I'll be sure to circulate that to the group so that you can actually vote on these options, and we can get some feedback from the committee members as well as the community when we go out over the next few weeks and months. Some of the other changes we're looking at are associated with Route 42 and 45. One of the complaints about Route 42, as you can see on the existing map on the left there, is that to ride from UATC north of Fletcher, you have to go all the way down to Yukon first before you complete the one-way loop before returning to UATC. So we're proposing to combine Route 45 with that section of the 42. We would then bypass the Yukon Transfer Center. That is a pretty low, not very highly utilized transfer center for our services. All the connections that the Route 45 currently makes there are able to be made at other locations. So this route, while it seems like it would make it a little more inconvenient to get to Yukon, the main transfers at Yukon are actually for Route 16, which you see intersects this route, the new proposed route on North Boulevard and Waters, and then Route 14, which also connects at a different location, not shown on the map here. But just a little context, it's not like we're removing all the connections there. In Mission Max, we pulled a lot of the services out of there to speed up travel times for customers. So it's kind of it's a pretty low, not highly utilized transfer center for all of our services. And then moving on. So Route 33, we've heard over the years, and a lot of staff have always wanted to convert the flex route on Northdale Mabry into a fixed route. So we're proposing to do that with the Route 33 to create a one-seat ride, from Northdale Mabry all the way into University Area Transit Center and beyond. We're proposing to reduce the frequency on the 33 to 60 minutes in order to accomplish this. This is one of those, we can save resources, but we think improve the service. As I said before, there's a lot of service on Fletcher. Every 15 minutes from Florida Avenue over to UATC currently, and then the other direction with Route 6, as I mentioned before. So we don't feel like it's really a major impact negatively to the corridor. However, it is a decrease in frequency. There's no way to get around that. But we really think that this is an improvement, and will provide some better connections for folks getting to Northdale Mabry and between there and the university area. So the new Tampa Route 275LX, we've gotten a lot of input about this route over the years. A lot of our board members are not super stoked on these longer distance LX or express routes. So what we did is we dug into the route a little bit more, and we found that about 50% of our ridership occurs on the Bruce B. Downs segment between Wiregrass and UATC. About 30% is between downtown and the university area, and then about 10 or 15% is between downtown and the airport. So what we're proposing is to just reduce this to the university area to Wesley Chapel segment. We still think that there's plenty of connections between Marion and UATC. Some of our most frequent routes, like Route 1 and Route 400 on Florida and Nebraska avenues. But we're actually entertaining some ideas. We may be able to stretch this down to at least the Marion Transit Center, so we can still have that really nice north-south route and still do something else for the connection from downtown to the airport. So that's, we'd really welcome feedback on that one as well. I think trying to keep that as more of a regional route that does connect to downtown is important for us, but we're just trying to see if we can manage it with our limited resources. And with that said, the connection from downtown to the airport was a very low percentage of the 275LX. And we also serve that movement with our 60LX route, which is something we're proposing to eliminate because it's a really low performer and has been modified over the years, not really meeting its original intention. So we're proposing to get rid of both of those routes between downtown and the airport and replace it with a service on Cypress Street. Excuse me. This is a corridor we used to serve with the Route 10. We're proposing a modified version of the old route, but basically to provide a pretty quick trip between downtown and the airport along Cypress, operating every 30 minutes during the weekday. Obviously, there's some development in Midtown that's very important. We think our customers will be wanting to access jobs there. And also, of course, there's a lot of residential coming online over in the West Shore district. So we think this will be a really competitive and convenient option for folks to get between downtown and the airport and West Shore. Just a little FYI, when the traffic gets really bad on 275 or we have a major accident, Route 60 and 275 detour to Cypress because its travel time is actually very reliable. So with that little information coming from our operations folks, we kind of said, well, if it's, 25 minutes, 90% of the time to get from downtown to the airport along Cypress, and we detour that way when it's not 15 or 20 on 275, then why don't we just put our resources down there? We'll probably space the stops to be somewhat of a limited stop service on Cypress to keep it moving relatively quickly. And I think that that'll be a big win for West Tampa. We've heard a lot from that community in the last few years about needing more service, and they felt, I don't know if slighted is the right word, but they definitely didn't get any favors done during Mission Max for their service. And on that West Tampa note, we are also proposing to return the Route 7 back to its old alignment down Main Street to Howard and Armenia. There was a number of reasons why this route evolved the way it did, but we are happy to be proposing to return that to West Tampa and hit the West River development that's coming to life as we speak. A lot of folks will get some really good access to HCC, to the health facilities on MLK, and then into and out of downtown. So we think this is going to be a huge improvement for that route, and ridership should reflect it in the long term also. One of the other modifications we're looking at is for Route 8. This is a route that comes from Brandon, travels through Progress Village, and then comes through Ybor City, through the Channel District down to Water Street. This route is riddled with constant detours, whether it's special events in Ybor City, construction in Ybor City, construction in Channel District, or Water Street. So what we're proposing to do here is formalize that detour that it regularly experiences and route it south to 4th Avenue that used to have some service down there, and then come in on Jackson and Kennedy instead of Meridian down to Channel Side and then Jefferson and Morgan. We just feel like this will be a little more consistent. It'll speed up the trips for customers that are coming from the Brandon and Progress Village area. And also, as the streetcar is free, it's pretty duplicative on that existing route for the shorter trips. So we think that this is an overall improvement for the route. And yeah, that's where the concept currently sits. And then Route 30 and Route 35 are proposed to be recombined. This used to be one route. This is also pertinent to the 60LX because that was stretched to the Northwest Transfer Center for a while, and that was one of those connections that didn't quite work out. And West Shore has been pretty adamant about wanting a single seat ride from Northwest Transfer Center into their district without having to force a transfer at the airport, which is what currently happens. Those connections can also be problematic if traffic's really bad and people will have to wait another 30 minutes to an hour, depending on which direction they're going. So this gets rid of that situation, creating a one-seat trip from Marion through West Shore and the airport all the way to Northwest Transfer Center. This is probably the most exciting, well, I don't know, the most exciting, because the West Tampa stuff is pretty exciting in my perspective, but this is one of the biggest wins, I think, in this plan is to extend Route 38 over to Parsons Avenue. There have been calls for service along that corridor as long as I've been around this area, which isn't super long, but I've heard it a lot. Our operations folks have said it, our community members have said it. So we're really excited to try to extend this route to Parsons Avenue and bring it into Oakfield to the Brandon Mall. So I look forward to hearing some feedback on that as we move forward. And this would be, we would also be proposing to eliminate the flex route in that area as part of this. One of the other issues we're wanting to address is on the Route 14. It currently ends at Swan and the Soho district, and we're proposing to extend it a little further south to try to get it to a true end of the line at Britton Plaza. We've got a couple of options on how to do that. And right now, the preferred option would be to go to McDill to try to improve some job access. There are some jobs down on that corridor that are currently not served very well. So we're proposing option 1, but also entertaining option 2 to get a sense of what the community wants to see. And we went out there and tested this route and had a bus on Bayshore a few weeks ago, which was a lot of fun because I'm not really sure when the last time there was a bus down there. Maybe somebody on our committee that's listening knows that answer, but I haven't figured it out yet. But I'm sure it wasn't the streetcar that was the last time we had transit down there. So some of the other changes, like I said, we're looking at across the board reductions. So one of the biggest ways we can do that is reducing frequency on our core routes. While we hate to do that, we put a lot of resources into those routes. For example, Route 1 has about 8 vehicles on it per day to maintain those 15-minute headways. Route 6, I think, is 10. Route 34, I believe, is 10. And Route 400, I believe, is 8. So by reducing the frequency from 15 to 20 minutes, we can reduce the amount of vehicles by about 2 across the board for each route, which converts into pretty significant annual savings in operation hours. And that's really the impetus there. We know that we don't have crush loads or load factors where we have overcrowding on these routes. A little bit occasionally on routes 1 and 6, but especially in this new pandemic era, we haven't had those issues. But what we know is that we can still serve the demand even pre-COVID with the service at less frequency. So we know that it's a safe thing to do and still accommodate the demand prior to the pandemic. So that's why this change makes some sense. We're still trying to figure out if we can maybe eliminate a few stops here and there and speed things up and try to maintain those headways with a few less vehicles. But as it currently stands, we're proposing to reduce the frequency from 15 to 20 minutes. Similarly, Route 46 in Brandon, we're proposing to reduce frequency there, reducing a few trips from some of the express services to Fishhawk, and then removing the services you see, primarily the flex services. The 20X is just 2 trips in the morning, 2 trips in the evening from Pasco is not very well utilized. And then the 75LX is just a Tuesday and Thursday specialized service that has not been very successful. So yeah, those are the highlights of the proposed changes: adjusting the routes we discussed, adding a little service on those 4 routes, 10, 14, 38, and 48, reducing frequency on some of the core routes and some of those express services, and then removing quite a bit of service. I just want to point out that most of those services we're removing are either duplicative with service or are being replaced by some of those extensions and added service I discussed. Happy to take questions on those.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Arizona, Higgins, hotline 88, representative. A while back when we used to ride the bus, there was a bus from downtown all the way to the airport. I believe that was Route 7. Are you still doing that? One bus to go all the way from downtown to the airport?
Yes, sir. This would be the proposed connection from downtown to the airport, Route 10. Also, Route 30 would also be a connection from downtown to the airport. So we would have 2 connections in the proposed services.
Okay, and they're going to be going into the same drop-off area as it was always, right?
No, it would be at the rental car facility where the connections have been made since that facility was opened. So not the main terminal, but where the people mover connects to the rental car facility.
Okay, so you have to walk from the about 11. How far is that?
You walk to the elevator to get onto the people mover. Yeah, that would be how you get into the airport.
Oh, okay. So I just want to know because I got people that can't walk that far. People with you. Because I usually ride the bus from downtown to the airport. And I usually get off right there at the main tunnel. So now you're telling me I gotta go do the people mover. How far the people mover from the main entrance?
I don't know exactly, but it's comparable to where the curbside drop off used to be. The problem is we couldn't get more buses into that main terminal,
Right.
which is why the Route 30 was the only route that used to go there. So
Right.
we were able to send a lot more of our services to the airport by serving the rental car facility curbside because there's space for about 4 or 5 buses.
Okay. Well, my question is, how far is it from the rental car place to the elevator?
It's on the same curb. It's the curb where you get off of the bus, connects straight to the elevator, and then you go up, and then I believe it's only maybe 150, 200 feet. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't been up there in a while.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh.
Great questions. Thanks, Arizona.
And any other questions?
I'll just, I'm almost through the end of this, but yeah, we're really close. So yeah, we're just increasing coverage on a few routes, and then we've got some impacts to existing bus stops that we're addressing. But like I said, most of the impacted stops will still be served within a quarter mile. And then here is the proposed service map, color coded by frequency. As you can see, most of the services within the city of Tampa would still be at 30 minutes. Our core routes move to 20, and then some of those, I would say a little more suburban and rural type routes would be hourly routes. And then of course our LX services don't really fit into that too much, but the 360 from Brandon would be hourly and the others would be more peak oriented. And that's the current draft plan. We're currently working through public outreach now. And we've got a pretty short timeline to get to public hearing and board approval in October and November, and then hopefully implementing in January before we don't know if we're going to have Super Bowl. So we will have surveys and public meetings notices going out soon, and look forward to hearing any comments. So I'll open it up now.
Any questions or comments from anybody? Carlos?
Hey, Justin, this is great to hear about the Route 7 and 10. I'm happy 10's coming back, and I'm happy 7 is going through Main Street. Randy Gores with the city of Tampa right now. We are working with the CRA and the CAC to make Main Street more of a commercial, neighborhood commercial district. So having the bus route through there is really going to help. No comments, just really happy about all the changes, and I'd like to invite you to our next CAC meeting so you can present these changes to the community when you can.
Oh yeah, that would be great. We're planning to have what we're calling it our street team, because we know we're not gonna be able to do kind of our traditional outreach, but we are still gonna try to go out to the transfer centers and get some feedback, but we're also gonna go to West Tampa and just kind of hang outside and walk around and talk to some folks. So that would be perfect. If you just shoot me an email with a potential date for that, and I'll get it on my calendar. I'd love to come talk to you guys and get everybody to fill out our survey.
I'll get you connected with a new CRA manager who's Jesus Nino.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I just have a couple. Justin, the number 8, when you showed it going through Ybor, is it so when it's heading out toward Brandon, it's staying on 4th? Does it go ever back over to 7th or?
Yes, over at 21st and 22nd Street. If you see where my mouse is,
Right.
that's when it jumps back up to 7, because the street closures usually occur right through this area. But we would be coming, so when we're coming from Brandon, we'd hop on 21st for a moment and then get on 4th. But going the other direction, it's really a geometrical issue. At 22nd Street, we can't go right on 7th because it's so tight over there. So we go down a little further to 26th, I think. And then turn that way, because it's just it's a kind of messy over there. It's really nice tight grid, which we love for pedestrians, but our 40-foot buses don't like them. But yeah, so we're gonna come back down to 4th. Hopefully, some of these, we have a RFP out right now, and we're hoping to have a vendor to run some circulator services. So we're hoping that our longer fixed routes can kind of be focused more on those regional needs, and then these shorter trips may be served in the near future should we find some funding, with some more appropriate circulators for the urban core. And then, these longer routes from Brandon and Progress Village are kind of brought in a little more quickly. So that's kind of part of the thinking there.
Okay. And my other question was regarding where Route 45 and 16 meet. I guess the 45 isn't going into Yukon anymore. Are there facilities where 16 and 45 meet, like a shelter or something, so people can get out of the rain or if they're waiting?
I need to check the facilities at that intersection. So that would be North Boulevard and Waters.
Yeah, I think that would be an important, if we're now expecting people to not wait at Yukon, where I just think there's shelters there. Now if you're waiting on the side of the road, that it's not just like a bench, that there should be some sort of at least structure to get out of the sun or the rain.
Right. Yeah, we'll definitely look at that a little more closely. But there's also, it'd be a little bit of a walking transfer from where Yukon actually hits North Boulevard. So there's different opportunities for how people make that connection depending on, which way they're going and where they're coming from. But I'll definitely get with our.
Yeah, as long as they can get out of the sun and rain, I think it's great that you're trying to speed it up and everything, but if somebody's getting off on North Boulevard, you don't want them standing out there and waiting for the 16 or something and, getting wet or anything.
Yeah, well, that's a great comment, and I'll look into that further.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on to the next item? Nope. All right. Well, thank you, Justin.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Next, we're on to the TB Next transition with Mark and Elaine.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, Mark, I just made you presenter, so you should be able to share. There you go. Yay.
All right. That was easier than I expected.
Yeah. And we have 3 more presentations, David. So.
Huh?
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Mark Cuddy. I'm with the Atkins Architecture Group, working with the rest of our company and many other teams to help develop the I-275 State Road 60 project that's up and coming. And my portion is the aesthetic hardscapes at certain locations. We are looking at doing some aesthetic treatment out on the causeway as you're coming off of the Howard Franklin and approaching the West Shore area. We're looking also at the underpass of Rio Street that's going to be constructed. The road is currently not there, but it'll be added. And as well as Occident and Northwest Shore and Trask, all in one area over there by West Shore Plaza. Give you a brief overview of the process. We are in the first round of 3 of presenting concepts to all the stakeholders and the people like yourselves who have interest in what's going on. And we're trying to get as much feedback from everyone so we can develop these concepts, make sure we're going down the right route, and set up the language and the guidance for the design team to develop something in the final as a final product. I'll go over as quickly. We have these boards are large. There's lots of information, so I'm going to hit on some kind of key points of each board or each area that we're representing. Each place has multiple concepts right now, and again, we're all trying to whittle this down. One area here is, as you can see, is the approach coming off of the what's going to be the new Howard Franklin Bridge. Off to the left here is some of their information on what the aesthetics they're planning to apply for their portion of the work. So we're focusing on towards the tail end of it as we approach West Shore and the airport exit and in that area. And we've come up with 2 ideas, 2 concepts where we have items mounted off on the either right off of the barrier wall along the seawall or maybe off in the water, and a repeating element on both sides, the north and south sides of the road. And then we have another concept, which is more of a monumental item. It's a single object, but it's a lot bigger scale. So we're toying with those 2 ideas. Here's the repeating element. It just kind of laid out, kind of the idea of the marina masts, using that motif as a strong element that could be done out there. And then we have the location of the monument to the south here. And again, what you're seeing here is not necessarily what's going to be put up there. It's just conceptual visualization. So don't take any of this for concrete information of what it's going to look like. Next location is at Rio Street, where we're doing a version of what they call a divergent diamond to help kind of keep traffic flow moving through there without causing too many traffic signals. We're looking at 2 methods of one being a graphic screen structure. This is kind of like a standalone item in combination with specialty MSE wall, looking at treating the sidewalk, highlighted some public art areas. So it makes the drive and any pedestrian use of the bike path going out to the trail kind of more interactive space as you go through it. And then another concept is doing more traditional, just specialty MSE wall and highlighting the areas where we can treat it so that people can see it again by driving through or walking through or biking through. And one of the other items you'll see is we're trying different concrete patterns, different designs, different ideas. Again, the color's not locked in, but it's just a way to show that we can do different color iterations in the sidewalk itself to kind of make the space a little bit more inviting to walk through and to kind of almost escort the people using the space out, in and out. And you can see on the board some of the other conditions. We've done some 3D sketches to kind of get a feel of what the space might look like early on, and using different ideas that might be more physical application versus changing the MSE wall. Occident Street, we have a roundabout feature that we're trying to include there. And again, we're using the idea of some kind of physical specialty wall covering over the embedment. And again, incorporating the roundabout with the sidewalk, adding a public art item in the middle, the potential for an opportunity there. And the second concept, again, is more traditional with the specialty MSE walls, different type of sidewalk pattern. We looked at different, you can see at the bottom, we looked at different MSC wall patterns here, some 3D, some not, just to kind of break up the, make it a little bit more visually interactive underneath. And again, some 3D sketches. And I know at this scale, it's kind of hard to see the original intent before everything is that these boards were 3x5 and could be viewed up in person. And however, that's all changed all of a sudden. So we're doing a lot more virtual. So it might be a little harder to see some of the detail, but hopefully you can get an idea of what's going on here. And then looking at doing some kind of 3D MSC wall to give shadow and play with light and texture and color. And at West Shore being a little bit more focal point here, one thing I forgot to mention, Occident, both Occident and Trask, due to the expected vehicular movement through there and a little bit more pedestrian activity, we wanted to scale, we're looking at scaling things down so that it's only for, it's more focused on the pedestrian because these spaces are so big. So the treatments and the aesthetic treatments would be ideal, kind of, for lack of a better word, pedestrian scaled for those spaces. So we're not sending people down, you know, these massive tunnels, which they are almost the size of football fields, to give you a sense of scale and length and width. So we've kind of keep an eye on what we're applying and make sure we're not overpowering those spaces with too much aesthetics, so to speak. West Shore, however, is a little bit bigger, a little bit more activity, so we're going to scale that up a little with what we're doing. We have three concepts. Two of them are similar. The one again being the graphic screen structure and showing different patterns. The uniqueness about West Shore here, similar to Trask, which we'll see, is we somehow have open bridge structure underneath, so we now have piers that we can treat. Another item is to have standalone structures on either side of the north and south side of West Shore, kind of making it the icon of the area and treating just the walls with specialty MSC wall. And in here you can see some of the 3D sketches we did to kind of see what would happen at nighttime, what it would look like during the day. And then also the treatment of the wall, the freestanding structure, and to have that incorporate with an idea of doing a repeating element up above so that if you're driving through the area on 275, you can see that you're in the West Shore District area. And then at Trask, we have more of the open bridge structure, so we have more piers to address. And again, concept is the wall covering. And the same here, we have the specialty MSC wall, so different components to address there. And then we took a look at some pier dressings. The two on the left that aren't colored are the traditional ones that they're using out towards the airport when they completed that work. So instead of ignoring it or coming up with something new, we wanted to kind of complement it, but yet make it its own. So we took a look at doing different things that might, you know, give it familiarity, but make it stand out on itself. And again, the colors are just to address a light color versus a dark color, not necessarily blue or green or any others particular. And then we did some 3D sketches on that as well to kind of get a gauge of what it might look like. And then one concept that we're looking for, and I wouldn't say it's really a concept as it's melding three areas into one, is kind of unifying Occident, West Shore, and Trask under a common theme because of their close proximity. And that's not to say we can't even include Rio, but Rio's far enough away and is a unique structure on its own that it could be a standalone. But as you can see, we have potential for some other areas along, one being, you know, we're talking about the repeating element up above the roadways here. I want to go back. There we go. On both sides of the roads, we're looking at all these piers to be addressed aesthetically in some way, whether it be with reveals and paint or just paint alone. And then all the areas in red will be where the potential where we have MSC walls, as well as some areas we didn't think about originally because of the pedestrian bike path being able to come by, or the space underneath and being able to see that whole wall underneath as you drive from West Shore past Trask and onto the highway. So there's other opportunities on there that we might be able to take advantage of. And again, you can see some of the sketches we talked about showing the repeating element along the upper roadway, kind of tying it in all together. And then of course, we've looked at different materials and how to treat all this stuff and making sure that it's sustainable and can last the time and the weather conditions out there, but make it as easy for maintenance as possible. And that's the aesthetic treatment in a nutshell. Elaine, do you want to continue on? I'll control the mouse.
Yep.
Or do we want to have questions?
Go ahead and do that. So thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. So the next part of Livable is related to the interstate. As we know, bike and peds are not allowed on the interstate. So as part of the interstate projects, though, over the last 20 years as we've been implementing them, wherever we can within the DOT's right-of-way, we have been trying to provide some connectivity for bike and peds and incorporate it as part of the project. We've done that on other sections that we've developed. So in this case, you're going back to almost a similar graphic that Mark had shown, showing the new areas and the underpass areas for the interstate. So there are the following slides that we're going to move to in a minute have all the details of these, but just hang with me so visually on this map for a minute. So on the left-hand side, you're coming off of the Howard Franklin Bridge, and the Howard Franklin Bridge incorporates shared use path. So it will come off and it will tie right into the Rio Street interchange. And then if you go up north, you tie into Cypress Street, and that is where the city of Tampa had already put in a 10-foot wide sidewalk, and then they put a sharrow down the frontage road. Mark, can you move the cursor to show where I'm talking? Yeah, and then coming down the frontage road with a sharrow on the other side, and then tying into Lemon Street over to Occident, and then south on Occident, down around, tie over to West Shore, over to Trask, and over to Hesperdes. So that's what we're going to walk through real quick.
Yeah, I may have accidentally muted you, Elaine, so you have to self-unmute yourself. I apologize. Here, let's see if I can.
You're going to make me do.
Okay. Oops.
Oh, no. Okay.
We can hear you now. Sorry.
You can? Okay, good. I was going to say, don't rely on me to do anything from a technology.
Okay. I did. I unmuted you. I figured out how to do you individually. Sorry.
So have you not been hearing me talk at all?
No, just the last couple of minutes is all.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the last 20 seconds or something like that.
Okay. So anyway, we'll move into the detail sheet. So Mark, can you go ahead and go to the next one? Okay, so this is oriented where north is to the right. So these next two slides are going to be a little funky, and then we'll get back to regular orientation. So just to orient you, right underneath Kennedy, with the word Kennedy at the top of the slide, where you see the purple and red, that is actually the trail that's coming off the Howard Franklin Bridge, okay? So if you wanted to go south, you would come down through the interchange, and it brings you down to the intersection of Hoover and Kennedy. And that is a signalized intersection. Most people who are like in the Beach Park area and everything, that's how they ride through. Then they get into the neighborhood to go south lots of times. So, and it also, if you just kept on going down Kennedy, it would take you to the West Shore Mall. So if you came off the Howard Franklin back up at the top again, and you wanted to go, say, out to the Courtney Campbell Causeway, Cypress Point Park, or anything, you would go north up Rio. So this is a new connection that we're constructing as part of the project. Go to the next slide. Okay, and so it comes up Rio Street. That pink area is designates done by others. The department is in conversations with the city of Tampa. This is along the Cypress Point Park. The city is going to get to make the decision of how they want to, what they want to do with this, but the connection will be made. They could bring it into one of the existing paths in the park, create a new path, or continue it right along the edge of the park, but they get to make that decision. So this is also oriented to the north and the right. So if you look down at the very bottom of Cypress, at the very right-hand bottom corner, that little piece you see down there, that's State Road 60 that's coming across. So when we flip to the next slide, that's where we're going to end up right there. So go to the next slide. And okay, so here we are. So this is where the 10-foot wide path is. The city already has in there. And so that will remain. And then currently there are sharrows and a 5-foot or 6-foot sidewalk out there. We're widening the interstate there, but we are going to be replacing the same thing. So there's going to continue to be a sharrow on that frontage road, along with a 6-foot wide sidewalk that ties into the sharrow along Lemon Street. And then next slide, and you can see that those yellow dotted dots those are existing sidewalks. So it ties into the new Occident underpass area and roundabout. And there's also that little pink area, again, is the missing piece of the sidewalk, which is outside the DOT right of way. But of course, we're hoping that we can work with the city to get that filled. And then you will have continuous sidewalk all the way through there, along with sharrows, then tying into this new Occident roundabout. And the Occident roundabout, you can see, if you go north up Occident, you can see the yellow dots again. That's an existing sidewalk that ties into Cypress Street, and we're going to try and extend that all the way up. The department actually owns all of that property up to the yellow dot. The bottom portion of it will become a retention pond. We're working to see if we can make that an aesthetic feature, maybe with a walking trail around it or something. We're trying to see, depending upon how much space we've got. It's kind of a challenge. We're trying to keep, as many trees as we can that are out there. So we're working on that. But the trail will then come south underneath the interstate under Occident, and then over to West Shore. Next slide. And then from West Shore, it'll go over to Trask, and Trask is the new underpass again. Then Trask over to Hesperdes, and that bright blue that you see, that is the existing trail that we constructed as part of the I-275 design build project. And it continues on, go to the next slide. Continues on down Carmen, underneath Lois, and then it goes along the interstate from Lois up to Church. And so that is all existing. So that's what we're tying into. So this takes us basically from coming across the Courtney Campbell Causeway, along the U path, along Cypress, also Howard Franklin Bridge, Rio, and then all the way over, so that we're getting this connection that ties into this trail that we already constructed that takes us all the way to Church. So we will have a good connected route that you can get all the way through there. So the last slide just shows you on the north side where Trask is a new underpass area that we'll have wide sidewalks underneath the underpass there that will of course tie into that future multimodal center, which some of the people in West Shore Palms were excited about the ability that were big bikers that were excited about being able to get over there and throw their bike on the bus and access the rest of the community. So this is just the very, very first round. This is our first cut. It's an iterative process, as everybody knows. We're working with the designers on the concept design as they identify their turning movements and the safest places for the crossings to be. I identified exactly where they are, the locations of them. We'll be tweaking this, but we wanted to bring it to you. We have a second round. Next slide. Yeah, we have a second round where of course, we're going out with the neighborhoods, but then our second round starts in December. So we will probably, if you're interested, come back to you in January and show you any refinements to both Mark's hardscape information and the bike ped information. And that's all we've got right now.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions on this one from any of our members? Yes.
Okay, hold on.
I'm not hearing anyone.
Okay.
So,
well, this is Lisa. Were you guys asking for feedback? Because it seemed like you were showing this to get feedback from Livable Roadways, because we're a great group to seek that kind of feedback. Is that true, or you got it like an outreach and you're just sharing this now and letting us know that you'll be going out to the community and want us to participate in that form of feedback?
We are we came to you guys specifically because this is about Livable Roadways as far as we're concerned. So we're happy to hear any comments of things that you like, that you don't like, that you haven't, that you didn't see, that you'd like to see, or stuff that you saw that that you think isn't appropriate, or whatever. I mean, whatever your comments are, we're happy to incorporate. If not, we will continue.
Everyone got muted again.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to unmute all because I see in the chat that Christine has some feedback and a question, and I hit the wrong microphone. So I've unmuted everybody. So if they self-unmute, they can get directed by David on providing feedback.
Yeah. I'm seeing that Beth Alden has a question, which I was responding to somebody else when I saw her question, but she asked, does the design of this trail connection meet the standards for the Florida Sun Trail system, since this is the #3 priority Sun Trail corridor in the state?
Why am I not?
My answer would be, I'm not sure that I can answer that yet. We've identified the connections, but we haven't gotten into the detail of everything. So I'm going to have to. There are some places, obviously, where we're just tying into a sharrow, or we're extending a wide sidewalk. So it is, you know what I mean? And there's some places where we don't have right of way, but wherever we have right of way, we're trying to accommodate a 12-foot path. And we do have a couple locations where we have constrained right of way, where we may have to be down to a 10-foot path. But that's about as far as we've gotten. Like I said, this is our first cut at connect the dots, and as we move forward, we can give you more detail. I can answer that question probably next round.
Okay.
Christine has a question, I think. I don't think we can hear her.
Okay. Yeah, that's she's unmuted, but she's by phone, so I don't know why.
Margaret
maybe
says
she could type it in. And
yeah,
I have some questions too when we get to that.
Okay, Margaret also is saying she can't unmute herself. So maybe if you can't unmute yourself, if you can type it in your question, and I'm going to try to get you an answer.
Okay.
All right, this is Margaret. I can now. Something got clicked.
Wonders of technology, Margaret.
I'm getting ready to present, and that might give some insight on where they're headed with some of these, some of the information that Elaine just presented. So.
Okay. Oh,
Christine, we
yay,
can hear,
Christine.
yeah, we can hear you.
Finally. Not sure what's happening. Let me see if are you guys getting feedback from me?
We are. Do you have two things running, like a phone and the computer, the volume on both? That causes that sometimes.
Well, you're not too bad. Go ahead and try to
I
split
can
it
hear
up.
me, and now I cannot hear you guys. So please don't hold it on my account.
No, you sound fine now. Go ahead.
Yeah, you sound, we're not getting feedback now.
Questions together and maybe send them to.
Christine, we can hear you fine now, so go ahead.
Maybe she can't hear us now. Yeah. I don't think she can hear us. All right, so before, if nobody has any other questions on.
Well, Lisa Silva does. I was waiting for the committee members. So, okay, so I know you guys, surely you guys have an opinion on the repeating versus the monument. That would seem like an easy no-brainer. Me personally, I kind of like the repeating versus one big giant thing, just by glancing at it. I also know that this group has seen presentations from Professor Trent Green, and he had students in his community design classes do aesthetics throughout the area. I was just curious if the designers considered that, and I definitely think that that would be a great resource to go back to one of his classes virtually to get their feedback, since you know, he's got a new crop of students, but it would be a great audience. And then my last input, I have a lot, but like, okay, my concern about the whole network of the whole area is it seems like we're relying a lot on wide sidewalks, and we're not completing the whole street by providing really good, safe on facilities bicycle accommodations. And I know you're doing punch through, so you have plenty of right of way underneath, and I know you have to transition into maybe constrained city of Tampa right of way for those complete, you know, streets, but those streets have the narrow and very frequent driveway cuts. So it just kind of makes me cringe to really see all side paths as the proposal. I'll stop. And then
Lisa, I guess I'd like to know where your concern is. Like, if you think about coming off the Howard Franklin Bridge, that's a trail that goes all the way up to where, again, ties into the existing 10-foot wide sidewalk. So you're right. And so that area getting through there, we're outside of DOT right away, so we're tying there. So that makes sense. But when you, yeah, so this is all, you're right.
Yeah.
So this is kind of still trail. I mean, and this is 16 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet trail,
right.
You know, 16 feet.
The trails along, yeah, the trails along constrained roadways, and you know, like, you know, where there's not a lot of, you know, there's not a lot of cuts. It's that's all great. It's more of like the Occident and Trask and punch throughs where I'm like going, oh, that's going to be right by a multimodal center, and we can't provide a buffered bike lane, you know, or a protected bike lane instead of just wide sidewalks.
Yeah, so in here, here we're showing 16-foot sidewalks, but it's basically 12 feet, so you can do whatever. So you're saying under Occident, you guys would prefer to have?
No, I'm just raising the question. Now I'm staring at it again. Okay, and you got a roundabout.
Yeah, and then you're crossing over. You're going to have to cross over the crosswalk here, and then you're going to be 16. Both underneath are going to be 16 feet underneath Occident. And then you're coming around again, that's 12 feet over to West Shore, and you have to make the crossing. We're trying to get them to the signalized, again, crossing. And then go to the next slide, Mark, again. Sorry. And then here, again, this is at the, so that this is kind of a funky area because there's a bridge over the top. That lightish kind of gold color is going to be a bridge over the top, but then you see below it, that's a West Shore. It's below, a Trask is going to be signalized. So it's going to, even though it's like part of an on-ramp kind of, it's going to be like functioning like a local road. So so the trail comes across at West Shore, And again, it's, you know, this is a 12-foot path until you can see where we're really constrained right in that little peak area right in there. And so we may have to go to 10 feet. So that comes over again, signalized here, and then across over again off of the interstate, but still within our right of way to come over to tie into the existing path. So underneath the underpasses, we do have these really wide sidewalks. But I mean, if you would prefer that if we don't have space to skinny up the sidewalks and put in a bike lane, that's something we could look at. We've been trying to just keep 16 feet under there so that we could have 12, you know, the overlay district shows, I think, in some locations, 15.5 feet or something, 12-foot sidewalk, and then they have a buffer area so they can accommodate lighting or a planter or whatever it is and still have an area. So we are, like I said, we are connecting the dots right now and trying to do the best. So if this is something that you're interested in, there's plenty of time to start looking at that.
Okay. Well, like the ones you're pointing out don't seem, now, thank you for explaining that, don't seem too unsafe because they're like right by a limited access facility. So there's not going to be that cross. I guess it's more of the, then tying it into the rest of the system, which is outside your purview, which is City of Tampa, then we're going to have just sharrows and the existing sidewalks. So I don't belabor because we have a lot to cover.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say we do have.
It's good. It's good for thought, and I'm sure our bicycle pedestrian advisory committee and staff will take a look at it some more. And I'm not dictating. I just was kind of curious, you know, like, why aren't we doing a little of both? So.
Okay.
All right.
That looks like, you know, trails are definitely the best. So if you got trails, that's good. Okay. All right.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. One more time. Let's try this again. So first, I wanted to ask about maintenance agreements with the city or county, just because my understanding of a lot of these aesthetic features is that without that kind of support or assumption of liability and long-term maintenance, some of these things end up getting removed potentially, especially when we talk about MSC walls and that might be something that still remains under DOT's maintenance, but some of these other pavement hardscape features. So have you guys been able to gauge what kind of or what level of commitment so far the county and city have been able to express?
Yes. So this is all within the city of Tampa, and on these big interstate projects, they're a little bit different than, you know, say just a state road or something like that. And so with the interstate, they're kind of rules of thumb. The department, because we have this urban design guidelines that we established back in 1994, that the MPO actually adopted and everything else, underneath with the interstate, the department does a lot of the maintenance, anything that's basically attached to the interstate, let's just say. So depending upon what it is, like for instance, think about 21st and 22nd down in Ybor. Okay, so those big lights that are up there, all of the arches that go over the bridges, all that kind of stuff, that is all in the MSC, specialty MSC wall, that's all maintained by the DOT. But when you get down below, like the fountain, they paid to construct the fountain. It was reviewed and basically dictated in terms of the design kind of by the city because they were going to maintain it. So it's a iterative thing. And yes, we do for West Shore area. A lot of the things that Mark was showing you would be maintained by the DOT. Things like the sidewalk, where we had coloration or some type of pattern, that would be responsibility of city. And our process is we work with the city and they also sit on some of our aesthetic working groups. And so we will not have anything that they would not agree to maintain. And from a trail standpoint, all the trails that we have built, we build and they have been maintaining, and they let us know whether they want lighting on them or not and what the lighting is and everything else, and that is the Parks Department. So we've worked with them on trails and every part of the interstate. Primarily, Carla Price is the go-to person for trails, landscape, but yes, so we have gotten good feedback from them so far.
Okay, that's good to hear. So areas like that pond where you're potentially considering making it into some kind of a more aesthetic feature with potentially a trail and that kind of thing, would that still be something that DOT would be willing to maintain, or is that also something the city would need to take on?
Well, you know, historically the DOT has been responsible for maintaining their own ponds inside the fence, and then what we've done over the years is we've tried to like crop the corners of the fence and put landscaping in the corners so that the city didn't have to go inside the pond area, so they could still maintain landscape on the outside and make it more attractive. But the drainage requirements for DOT have been modified, and now the fencing in most cases are going away for retention ponds. So you have to basically ask for an exception and show that you're not meeting these certain requirements to actually put a fence in. So in this case, it's going to be kind of a first. So I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, but we're going to have to work through it, that, you know, there'll be some landscaping around it and potentially a path that if it's a walking path, then maybe the city will be maintaining it, but maybe they won't. Maybe the department will be. So this is going to be kind of a first if we're able to do that.
Okay, and my one last comment is it seems like there's some spaces under I-275 that are not going to be filled, that are going to remain as somewhat open space. Currently, are you guys considering just fencing that off? It's limited access and nobody really has access to that area? Or are you considering leaving it open and it becoming some kind of an open space that people can traverse?
Mark, you want to go back to your overall like thematic slide that shows that open space and maybe talk about the possibility of what we're thinking about in there? Are you, Mark? We can't hear you if you're.
You have to unmute yourself, Mark. There you go.
There we go. All right.
There you go.
So yes, there is a portion underneath here that is all bridge open structure. Earlier designs, we had a lot more and we were thinking of grander things under these spaces, but due to the way the concept design has been developed, there's a lot more MSC walls. So we are left with a small portion of open area, potentially underneath here between the West Shore to Trask, I'll call it an on-ramp or service road, and the southbound lanes up here to the north. So you're looking at almost just under 570 feet of real estate there. There is no definitive that I'm aware of, you know, the FDOT has not come and said, hey, we're closing this off. You can't do anything in here. So we are looking at, you know, giving the opportunity to do something underneath there. But because of the bridge, you know, we don't want to, there's not much we can grow underneath there. So it's going to be flexible. It's going to be, we're not ignoring it. We want to do something with it. We just don't know what we can do with it just yet.
So one of the,
maybe it'll be a small path through there and that's it. And it's some kind of rock / basic garden, or it's just a smaller trail. The walls, we might be able to do something aesthetically on it to kind of draw people through that space. So the potential's there, and we're not ignoring it. It's still a lump of clay, and we're still molding it all to kind of figure out what we can and can't do.
Yeah, let me add to that, because as Mark has gone through this, in some places he's identified where there's potential for public art. The roundabout up here, he talked about the two possibility, like kind of lighting features almost at West Shore. This is another area that's been identified, and we work with the City of Tampa Public Arts people all the time. So we've talked about, as Mark has identified, you know, a specialty wall in there, specialty lighting. You're doing things with piers under there. So we're just too early in the process to get to the point to where we've really started fleshing that out. But that has been identified as an area, quote unquote, for public art. So we just don't know what that space is going to be yet, because we have to start working on tying down some of the themes and everything else in terms of what's going on through the area, and then we'll work with there.
Sure. I would definitely encourage some thought. I mean, even beyond art, it's open space. So I think the conversation of placemaking potentially, what that space is going to attract beyond putting an amenity of public art activation in the space could really help it become something somewhat special. And I understand that's not necessarily within DOT purview, which is why I ask about the city's involvement and maintenance agreements and that kind of thing. But I think the space has a lot of potential to become kind of derelict, unfortunately, as well as potential to be activated and turned into something really unique. So with that, that's the end of my comments.
We have been talking with West Shore Alliance, and that has always been their #1 biggest concern, is that those areas don't become, you know, a mess underneath there. Like we have some bad examples of areas where the department has had to fence off an area, and this is not one of those areas. We intend to do that because there is so much pedestrian traffic in the area. We feel like there's a good opportunity to activate it instead of it becoming a nuisance, obviously. So that's the goal.
Great.
I have one last question. I know it's very early and you haven't, but do you have a rough cost estimate for the aesthetics for this portion?
I don't even want to answer that. Right now it's like a percentage, and we don't really know. We have no clue, because we can't really cost anything, because anything that you say, it's like, oh, I want this to be a specialty wall, or I want there to be a wave on this wall or something, and then you could do the wave with, you know, 3 different types of materials, or it could be painted, or it could be,
right.
You know what I mean? It could be 3D,
yeah.
It could be integral, it could be, so we really, at this stage, we really don't want to get into the cost issue.
Okay. Don't even have like a budget that you can kind of spend for that segment or something, that section. Okay. And of course, we like trees. So
Al has a question, I think.
Yeah, it's just a comment. I just want to let everybody know that the FDOT has been working with the city a lot on this. So when they talk about the conclusions that they have here, these were not designed in a bubble by them. Most of these were probably, it's hard to tell whether the typical's there, but looking at Lemon Street, that is probably directly coming from a city comment and not an FDOT decision at all. So we made comments to all of these. We've asked for changes. FDOT has complied, and it's been really good to work with. So I don't want y'all to think that it's just something that I want to give credit to them, because this project is large, but the amount of time and effort they put into community outreach and city coordination has been a lot. So I think what you can see here, if you see anything, and if you have questions about if they've been coordinating, they certainly have been. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
All right. Anyone else on this? Before we go to Margaret, if Justin is still watching, Arizona has been asking questions under the questions portion. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. So if Justin can chat with Arizona, hopefully he can answer some of the specific questions about the heart. I think he was muted and he wasn't able to ask all his questions. So
yeah, I think he had a few more. And I also mentioned that maybe they could get together. Yeah. I'll get the questions to Justin to follow up with Arizona is what I private message as well.
Cool. Thank you. Margaret, we're ready to go.
All right. I'm making you presenter. Unless you want me to run it. Okay.
You can say that I'm ready to go, and let's see how well this goes.
It's going to be easy. And I wish it always was this way.
Thank you, Mark and Elaine, for everything.
Yeah, it's great stuff. I wish we had a whole meeting to talk about it, and we were together.
Could talk a few hours on it.
Thank you, guys.
Sure.
Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
See how easy that was?
Yay. Let me see. Let me swap that out. Okay. Do you see full screen?
Yep. Perfect.
Excellent.
Perfect. See?
Okay. Before we get rolling, I just have to say, Christine, I want to let you know how much I appreciate the comments that you're making, especially during this this time in our process. And one of the values of us presenting during this, the phase where we are right now, we're in a very collaborative phase. And I just got back from Chicago Sunday night, and I rode over 16 miles and throughout Chicago. And the questions that you're asking about celebrated space and so on is just really phenomenal. We can do this as a region. We can do a really good job of creating really great streets. I rode some of the best in the country throughout the weekend, walked them. It was just amazing. So I actually have a call with Nick on Friday to talk about Chicago and traffic management. So
Awesome.
anyway, I'm excited to be a part of all of this with DOT. So see, I'm wearing the DOT brand now. Okay, so safe trip. Let me get started in this portion of the presentation. Let's see. Okay, so I think everyone understands that last fall, the governor announced that we were awarded a $1.4 billion project for the reconstruction of Tampa's West Shore interchange. Very exciting for us, definitely needed. We have a lot of traffic congestion, and I'm going to step away from those concepts of demand and balance and all those kind of things at the moment. When it comes to construction, we definitely have a lot of constraints. We have a huge challenge of designing and building this while we're under traffic during the entire time. We expect to have shovels in the ground in 2024. And so Safe Trip is our transportation management plan that we're establishing now in preparation for us being under traffic while we're in construction. Of course, we're very focused on the safety of what's happening within the corridor, and then how do we help mobility for everyone that's traversing through the area as well as through it. So Safe Trip is our transportation management plan. It is required by federal highways in order to have a comprehensive management for all the travel through the area. We branded it as Safe Trip. So safety is number one, and then TRIP stands for traffic management. R is regional demand management. Innovation is relative to smart work zones, the work zone data exchange, as well as mobility as a service and whatever may come along. And then P is for public engagement. We started this a few months ago, excuse me, and through a collaboration and input, you can see our wonderful word cloud here. God, I love allergies. We established a vision statement. Definitely interested in being well planned. We've had a lot of meetings, a lot of collaboration, and innovation is going to be very important. That's a matter of us leveraging technology in order to have the most efficient and most informative construction zone that we can possibly have. Of course, safety is number one. All of you are very familiar with Vision Zero, at least I expect that you are. And so when it comes to safety, it is a focus on recognizing that there will be crashes, but anyone that's involved in a crash, hopefully our goal is to have where they could either walk away or they could fully heal from any injuries they have. Reliability has a lot to do with how we're doing our planning time index. Let's say during a peak hour, it only takes you about 20 minutes to get to the airport right now. Once we're under construction, it may take 30. And then if you're trying to plan the trip while we're under construction, you're gonna probably consider 30 or 40 minutes. We don't want you to have to plan on, oh, I've got to plan an hour and a half because I don't know what's gonna We're very focused on quality transportation choices. I prefer to use choices versus transportation alternatives. We want to be strategic in how we apply our innovation and very proactive in our communication, very back and forth. Because of what's been established from the previous versions of TV Next, there has been a lot of engagement with the public as well as all the professionals through the throughout the industry, and that has shaped where we are today. We've identified those 4 elements, I guess, our trip, and we have more goals. We have more detailed goals under each one of these. Let me just, like, one is under traffic management, deploying instrumentation and build operational capability throughout the network. And so it's not about necessarily building any kind of capacity increases. It's just managing the network and knowing what's going on the corridors. We also have under traffic management, predictive planning and predictive analytics technology for real-time information and decision-making. So that's actually, it comes over here and parlays into under innovation, mobility as a service, which also parlays over here to public engagement. Under regional demand management, it's not just discussing transit, but it is about understanding how we're going to deal with freight. So we know that we have the airport within our circle of influence, and how are we going to get freight through the area, but then how are we going to deal with deliveries? All of that is playing into what we're doing. Specifically in the regional demand management, I also want to point out that having the network of the bicycle facilities has been at the forefront of many of our conversations in addition to transit, because we envision how valuable it's going to be in order to have everything working together, and that there are several trips that we could capture using a robust quality bicycle facility. And some of the routes, in order to provide that quality element or the quality facilities, we aren't going to be able to put it all on the DOT right away. It is going to take a collaboration with the county as well as the city-owned roads. And that's why it's all important for everyone to be at the table in order for us to create the proper network. I know many of you have heard me speak about concerns that the travelers, typically, they don't understand jurisdictional boundaries. So all they see is government. So it's our responsibility to be seamless. We need to all be working together, leveraging our resources and creating the best transportation system for any traveler throughout Tampa Bay. In the innovation bucket, we have the smart work zones, and I'm going to give you a little more details about that. We're also working with the MPO and others with the work zone data exchange. We're trying to establish a way for us to share information, and we're aware of what we each have going on in the area, whether you're state or city. And then what about a utility? You know, all of a sudden they've got to shut down a lane because they have to jump into a manhole for a utility maintenance issue. How do we know what's going on a daily basis, and how do we push that information out to the travelers? And then public engagement. As I mentioned, we have a robust network of organizations, individuals, agencies in order to share information, and hopefully it appears that we have a very strong back and forth relationship. So we are taking information in and we're making adjustments appropriately. So in this map, excuse me, in this map, we can see that here's 275. That's all part of TV Next. Our area that we're focused on is right here, sections 4 and 5. But you can see how we're really looking at the network and how we can utilize the entire network in order to facilitate trips that people may have. Someone from Tampa Heights, in order to get to the airport, instead of swinging down and jumping on 275, why don't they just jump on Columbus and take that all the way over to the airport? I actually personally do that just because I avoid 275. We also are, we have several projects that are underway to do instrumentation on those corridors. What that means is that we need to have a lot of sensors. We may have arterial dynamic message signs to get information out there. We also have cameras that we want to have so we can monitor and make adjustments. And that's where the collaboration with local government's important, because the city of Tampa manages our traffic signals. So if we have a change, we need to be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, by the way, you know, we're seeing a backup over here that you may not see, especially during off-peak hours. So it is very much a collaboration to make it work. Let's see. When we get to the regional demand management, the phase that we're in right now is looking at the origin destinations, and we're looking around in the area to pick up on, are there transit opportunities to enhance or new routes or something that we could do with HART or with PSTA. But it's also looking at, is there an opportunity where T-BARTA can help with shared trips, where people are doing carpools and putting those together. And then we have asked for it within the model to look at 3-mile radiuses or radii, so we can capture those bicycle network trips. And we're putting everything on the table we can possibly put, recognizing that there's going to be areas that other agencies or organizations might be able to pick up a little piece of it. For instance, if we can help enhance a park and ride condition, maybe we can get someone else to do a better bicycle parking facility at that park and ride in some of the more remote locations. So someone feels confident that their bike's still going to be there when they come back, and not just chaining it to a post somewhere, as well as having bicycle facilities leading up to the park and ride. Let's see. Okay, so as we step into the innovation piece, we have a lot that's been going on in regard to speed harmonization and a zipper merge. Speed harmonization is about having variable speed limits. We are looking at having enforcement there as well, and working with FHP, already have a call set up with them, as well as working with construction for implementation. We're establishing a pilot project right now on Gateway, which is over on the Pinella side for Section 2. And we're looking at deploying this, both speed harmonization and the zipper merge over there. The basic setup in a smart work zone is, this is your work zone, and then along here you have all your sensors. And it takes the information right here with all the sensors, and it's automatically going up in the cloud, a decision's made very quickly, and then we're sending information back to the upstream to warn drivers what they can expect as they approach. So if it's free flow, it just notifies them that there's road work ahead, but then as the speed drops, it'll say slow traffic ahead, and then if it drops even further, then it'll warn them that there's stop traffic ahead. The picture also shows here the depiction of a zipper merge, and I am going to see if I can make this work. I have a great PSA. Let's see. Could work. Okay, can you tell me, can you hear?
We could see the video, I don't think can hear it.
You can't hear it?
No.
No.
But we see it.
Do the zipper merge. Okay.
Well, I could probably, this is, anyway, let me see. Okay, let me see if this works. I will bring this back to the beginning.
maybe if we put the closed caption on, then we can read it.
Mute.
See.
Mm-hmm.
If not, I Googled it and found it.
Interesting.
Okay, so if you didn't get a clear picture and you couldn't hear it or follow the closed caption, just you can go on YouTube and just look for zipper merge, and it's now going to play in the background. Hold on.
That's how.
Okay, and then I can send the link as a follow-up to the committee as well.
Yeah.
Okay, and don't you love Teams? It won't stop. Anyway. So what I'd recommend, you can just look it up, or late merge, and we are in the process of working with central office and making sure that we have the standard indices so it all works. So it's been pretty interesting in this because we're so collaborative on this effort, working with people in planning all the way through people that are working in the construction office as well, and working with CEIs on the active construction project. So it's pretty exciting. When it comes to public engagement, like I mentioned, we are trying to leverage all the tools that we have in order to make sure that we're reaching as much as the public as possible, as well as other agencies, and sharing information. Florida 511 has become very effective in having a method to share information. And then some of you may not realize is that with all the data and all the sensors that we have out there, this information goes into our program called SunGuide. And then from SunGuide, all that data is then filtered and processed and pushed out through Florida 511. Well, it doesn't end there, because we also have organizations like Waze that they go to Florida 511 and they pick up information on a minute by minute or less opportunity to pull out what's going on with the sensors. So we're already engaged with those third-party vendors and pushing information out. And that's all real time. The public engagement also recognize that we have a lot of individuals and smaller community groups that we establish relationships with. Obviously, with the situation we're in, we're having to do a lot of virtual meetings, but we keep at it, and we're updating our opportunities as quickly as possible. We also have a community advisory task force, and we've already had our first meeting. We're going to schedule another meeting once we understand what the traffic control plan, what the preliminary concept plan looks like, and have a work session with them to get feedback and input. But you can see the diversity of the individual organizations that we're working with, and we're paying attention to what their personal needs are. Personal is the wrong word, I'm sorry. But we are working with those individual organizations as well as collaboratively what's going on for the best project. That's our ultimate goal. Lessons learned is very important as well. Why do we want to do make the same mistakes others may have had? So we've already had conversations with District 5 about our I-4 Ultimate. they've already helped us understand the value of making the transportation management plan a part of the contracts with all the contractors. So they have to stay involved and help influence and guide how the overall program needs to continue to be refined. It's not like a still document. We've also had lessons learned conversations with VDOT as well as MoDOT, as well as we have one scheduled next week with Wisconsin DOT. Last week I was on a joint call where Thea did a presentation, and we are setting up a meeting with Thea as well to understand what's happened on Gandy while they're doing the construction of the Selman Expressway extension out to the Gandy Bridge. We're very interested in understanding how their construction has influenced the actions and the activity that's happened on Gandy and what's occurred there, because we want to mitigate any potential impacts, negative impacts that could be along the corridor. Bringing this to a close, this shows the general schedule that we have. So we are in the mode of developing Safe Trip. We are developing strategies. We have goals and objectives that are underway. Then we expect to have that document ready to go in the spring. We already have early project deployment. Earlier I discussed the instrumentation. We're working towards advancing some of that instrumentation and getting it on the ground as soon as possible. We're looking at things like even transit signal prioritization. Let's see, we expect to, once we have the document done, we're gonna let it rest for a little bit and then go into the refinement mode, depending on how deployment of projects goes. And then certainly, as I mentioned before, when we get into construction, then we will have the contractor committed to being involved with the refinement of this overall program. I know I put in a lot, but I will take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Any questions?
Larry put one in the chat. Did you see that?
Let's see. The chat box is, let's see. All right, here we go. It looks like, this is from Larry Josephson. It says, looks like a good solution, but then you have motorists that perceive that those vehicles merging in are cutting in and then don't let the merging vehicles into the traffic stream, just human behavior. How is the existing test zipper working?
Yeah, so that's a really good question or an observation. And it's interesting. If you do the search on YouTube, there's one that addresses that more specifically. But it's because we're advising everyone to use, basically you're advising everyone to use full lanes, use all the lanes. It actually eliminates that situation. And that's why there's a lot of public service announcements that need to go out. But as soon as people understand it, it's going to be very intuitive. And that is what we continue to hear. When you look online, you can see how those messages have been out there. But once you have people using both lanes, then the people that could possibly want to cut up, cut in or whatever, it eliminates that completely, because there is no speeding in, jumping ahead of the line. There's a sweet spot in there when you look at that presentation. Let's see, let me look at that figure. Okay, so there is a sweet spot. If you see over here where we have free flow traffic, it's fine. People can merge ahead in advance of the work zone and everything kind of flows easily. But as you start slowing down, that's when you start running in the situation where people don't know how to do the zipper merge. But then once you get to a stop condition, I mean, you're going to have people that don't know how to drive properly. But hopefully it's going to be few and far between. And it's like sharing the pain to get through. Anyway, it You'll have to watch a couple of the videos and the motions. I apologize that didn't work very well.
That's fine. And maybe Lisa
does
could
get-
send out
it
the
does
link to the
resolve
video.
itself.
Yeah, I'll send the link to the video. We are running kind of long, so maybe we can
Yeah, any
hold the
other
remainder.
questions? Nope. All right. Well, thank you, Margaret.
You're welcome.
Is Dr. Johnny Wong
Yeah, he's here. Hold on.
with us, or did he need to leave?
He's here. Okay. And he promised to go really quick. I think he's still here. Johnny, I gave you control. Let me see what he texted me.
Okay, you all here?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah.
Lisa, would you do me a favor and click the slides for me?
That's right. I'm supposed to do it. Okay, hold on.
While she gets that set up, thanks everybody for having me. I appreciate you inviting me to the LRC. I'm here to give you a quick update on a project that's been in the works for about 4 years. For 3 of the past 4 years, it's been just an idea or a vision for the future. But last November, we finally had the opportunity to launch the project, which is a shared data and analytics platform. And we're really excited about this because we think that eventually this could become a one-stop shop for all transportation data sets that are floating around the county, thus making it much easier for folks in operations and planning to get the data they need to do their work properly. Next slide, please. Just for a little bit of history, the Hillsborough MPO participated in a pilot study from the Federal Highway Administration back in 2016. That pilot study was regarding data business plans. The purpose was to learn how agencies of different sizes are acquiring, using, and managing different types of transportation data. The study focused mostly on the governance aspects. So it was really focusing on how are data being collected, how are changes being documented, who's responsible for quality, etc. The way that we structured the study is on the next slide. If you click through, please, Lisa. This slide shows some of the specific topics that were covered in the data business plan pilot. The most interesting findings came from the second, third, and last bullet points on this slide. Those questions regard what data do we have, what data do we not have, and what are our visions for the future. Next slide, please. The way that we studied those 3 bullet points were by sending out surveys to all of the transportation agencies across Hillsborough, and we asked their data stewards, what data are they collecting, how are they using it? The responses showed that there are at least 50 unique mobility or transportation-oriented data sets across the county. That's a huge number, but even still, that number could be quite an underestimation. It was also really interesting to learn that Hillsborough County is operating almost on the cutting edge. Remember that this study was being done back in 2016, but even then, THEA was preparing to collect connected vehicle data. HART was getting ready to deploy an autonomous bus. I believe that we were the first MPO to join the Waze connected data exchange. The study also revealed another issue that we haven't given a ton of attention to yet, but we're kind of working this issue through in our forthcoming plans, and that is the data landscape across the county is highly uneven. We recognize that there are a few agencies that are very well structured and well funded, and their data programs are immense. But at the same time, there's other agencies that have very few resources, and they're not really able to invest in computational tools or to invest in consultants that have expertise to do high-level analysis. So we think that in the future, it'll become really important for data-rich agencies to continue to expand their programs and continue to build that expertise, but also to share data and insights with agencies that may not be able to afford those resources on their own. Next slide, please. So the idea for the data portal came to fruition last November. It's only been operational for about 8 months, but we've already gotten a ton of value out of it. especially with the stay-at-home directives due to COVID. We've been able to do a really good job tracking and monitoring changes in traffic patterns over that time period. And specifically for the types of analysis that the MPO is doing, we've saved a ton of time. We're getting ready to evaluate our performance measures or our performance targets next month. And 2 years ago, when we were doing performance measure analysis, that type of study would have taken at least a few weeks. Now we're able to do that same kind of analysis in a matter of days. So we're really shrinking the amount of time required by a factor of 10 or more. So we're really working smarter and not harder here. Next slide, please. The specific name of the data platform that we're using is ClearGuide. It's an Iteris product. It is programmed with HERE data, which has been made available to us for free by central office. That data is real time, so you can see what's going on in the network within seconds of something happening. It can be binned in 5, 15, 60-minute intervals, which is really good for operations folks who need to respond to something that's going on in the network within seconds. And it can also be binned daily, yearly, or even longer if you're doing a planning study. Next slide, please. Next slide. You can go one more slide, yeah. All right, so I decided not to do a live demo. I knew that we would be running short on time, but when you log onto the system, this is the home screen that you see. It's a map of Hillsborough. From this view, all you have to do is hover your mouse on any segment that's color-coded. You see that the streets are colored either green, yellow, orange, or red. If you zoom in, you'll see that there's data available on even smaller roads, which is not something that is typically found in a data analysis platform available to a public agency. So we really have an abundance of data compared to our peers. We recently completed a contract to add incident data from Waze, so we can see incidents of police stops. We can see potholes that are reported. We can see reports of congestion from users. We also brought in crash data from the local crash data management system. So this is really the first tool where we're able to see data like speed, delay, other congestion metrics, as well as crashes and incidents all in the same time. So this is really helping us draw correlations between different data sets that used to be isolated. Next slide, please. We're using this tool for a couple of fun activities and a couple of really important activities. I'll begin with the fun one. This is just kind of like our use case that we studied to figure out how to use the tool. Next slide. This is a little pet project which focuses on studying congestion on commuter routes rather than just corridors. So for the first planning use case study, we're calling it the top 20 most miserable commutes. We used our transportation demand model to identify job clusters across the county. These clusters, going from cluster to cluster, means that you're moving from an area of high population to another area of high population. So you would expect that the route is very congested because these are the ones that people are traveling on most frequently. There's 15 clusters across the county, so we created a matrix from origin to destination, meaning that there's 225 routes. We analyzed speed, delay, travel time, buffer time on all these routes. We're weighting them, and we hope to be able to produce a list of 20 corridor or 20 commuter routes that cause people the most pain and aggravation during the morning rush hour and afternoon rush hour. Next slide, please. You can go to the next slide. All right, so that was kind of like the fun example. We're also using it for more formal planning efforts. We're going to be using this tool to improve some planning processes by supplementing traditional level of service analysis with more appropriate metrics given the local context. So we have a meeting coming up in the next couple of weeks with Hillsborough County staff to discuss how we can integrate some of these new analytics into the comp plan update that's forthcoming. Next slide, please. It's also a really useful tool for public engagement and transparency. Because this is web-based, it makes it really easy to pull up the site Let's say, for example, that you're at a public meeting and people are asking you to show them locations of where cars are speeding through their neighborhood or where crashes are occurring within their community. You can pull this site up and zoom in to the area of interest, and you can show the public the data that we have access to. And, you know, I don't have to tell you that most of the time that data is only available to us behind the scenes, making it really difficult to convey to the public. But now we have a tool that we can bring directly to them. So we're really hopeful that this will meet public need much better than in previous years. Lisa's telling me I gotta go fast, so click to the next slide, please.
Yep.
I'll be real quick. So most of those examples that I talked about were planning studies. City of Tampa is also using this to do more operations-based analysis. They've used this to evaluate traffic signal retiming plans. Next slide. Rather than hiring on consultants to do the evaluation, they're now able to do this in-house. So they identified a bunch of signals in downtown that they wanted to retime. They were able to use a multi-route reporting feature that's baked into ClearGuide to see values for travel time and delay before and after the study. So this kind of analysis can be done in an afternoon, and it gives them really good data. Next slide, please. You can see that they were able to assess that travel time and delay were reduced on every signal that they retimed throughout the entire downtown district. Next slide, please. So all of that is good. All those examples that I showed you are what already exists. We would like to take this platform to the next level each fiscal year. Getting this platform launched has marked really a turning point for our area. We presented this to the Smart Cities Alliance on multiple occasions, and every time we meet, we're finding that our partners are identifying new uses for this. The tool itself is really facilitating collaboration, and Margaret spoke to that a little bit. This month, we're doing another major release on the platform. We're going to be able to do bottleneck analysis. Corridor level volume profiles will now be available. And there's also a data downloader so that if you have expertise on staff, you can download here data and play around with it in Access. Later in this fiscal year, we're hoping to integrate some new data sets like maybe transit data. We're going to continue exploring OD. The City of Tampa has requested that we track e-scooters, and we would also like to bring in some demographic data so we can see how performance is correlated to different segments of the community as well. Longer term, we've already got commitments from this to help us turn this into a predictive tool. So we think that we're doing pretty good in having real-time data available as well as historical, but we would like to be able to predict what's going on in the network in the future, given certain improvements on the network. So we're really excited about taking this to more of like a sci-fi directive, if you will. Next slide, please. We've offered a number of training opportunities to all of our partner agencies. We're continuing to offer those trainings each time that there's a major release. We're expecting to do another one in the last week of this month, maybe the first week of September. If you all would like to have access to this and you are a partner agency, get in touch with me. We'd be happy to schedule something. I'm running kind of short on time, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have, either now or you can email them to me later.
Johnny, I think there was one question in the chat from Roger about how good do you find the Waze data to be?
I would say not great. It's kind of what you would expect out of a data set that's reported by the public. However, we're able to sort by reliability, and people build up their reliability score by getting points. So if you're a user and you've reported a number of incidents that have been confirmed by other members of the public, you can build your score. So we're able to filter out the ones that are less reliable and separate them from the ones that we think will be more reliable.
All right. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you. Thank you, Johnny.
Great. Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
All right. The next up, old business, new business. Lisa?
I have one new business, at least to remind it, or to tell everybody newly, because it's just getting going. We're doing 8 Vision Zero corridor studies for the top 8 corridors in Hillsborough County, and we're going to get ready to do virtual and be creative with our public engagement to seek feedback on them. So I will send it out, and hopefully you guys can help distribute to groups that you know along the corridors, or tell me of those so we can get them that feedback. So for example, Sheldon Road is right here. I've got Lynn Turner, Bruce B. Downs, and Fletcher, and then Wade has 4 corridors, Gibsonton, et cetera. So anyway, so stay tuned. We're designing those virtual surveys to get feedback on those top corridors. We'd love your help to distribute it.
Any other old or new business, anybody?
I believe there's a Walk Bike Tampa Bay Summit coming up, and September we have our Vision Zero Leadership Summit. So there's flyers in your packet. So I'm going to point those out, put that on your calendar. That you do not want to miss that. It's going to be really good. So.
Okay.
All right. Otherwise, we'll see you in September.
Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, I move to adjourn. Okay. Right, everybody?
Yeah.
Good. All right. We'll see you all next month. Have a good one. Stay safe out there.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
See you. Bye.
Thank
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.